The image of a high-tech shield protecting a nation has been the bedrock of global security for over a decade. But what happens when the math of modern warfare turns that shield into a sieve? You have seen the footage of glowing streaks intercepting rockets over Tel Aviv, a display of technological dominance that seemed to defy the very laws of probability. Yet today, on day 18 of this conflict, we are standing at the precipice of a terrifying new reality where the most sophisticated air defense system on the planet has officially hit its limit. By the end of this deep dive, you are going to understand exactly how a grassroots strategy of cheap drones and mass-produced rockets managed to bankrupt the world's most advanced military doctrine. And I am going to reveal the specific moment the launchers went silent and what that means for the future of every major city in the West. Before we go any further, I want to ask for your help in proving a point to a close friend of mine who lives in Singapore. He recently told me that I wouldn't even reach 100 subscribers because he thinks people only care about shallow news bites rather than deep, meaningful stories like this one. I told him he was wrong because I believe this community supports the truth and wants to see independent voices thrive. If you believe this story is worth sharing and you want to help me show him that we stand together, please hit that like button and subscribe right now so we can prove that informed audiences still exist. To understand why the Iron Dome is currently gasping for air, you have to look at the cold, hard numbers that the Pentagon is frantically trying to crunch behind closed doors, because while we were all told that technology would always win, we forgot that war is ultimately a game of logistics and industrial capacity. Later in this video, I am going to expose a secret transport manifest that shows exactly which U.S. military bases are being stripped of their own defenses just to keep the Middle East from falling into a total blackout. But first, we have to talk about the exhaustion trap that has been 18 days in the making. Imagine you are standing on a ridge and someone starts throwing stones at you, and every time they throw a stone that costs them 5 cents, you have to fire a specialized laser that costs you $500 to stop it. At first, you feel invincible because your laser never misses, but eventually, your battery starts to fade and your pockets run dry, while the person across from you has a mountain of stones that cost them practically nothing. This is the exact economic nightmare currently facing the U.S.-Israel alliance, where the cost of a single Tamir interceptor missile is officially verified at $50,000 per shot. Compare that to the Qassam-style projectiles costing roughly $800 to manufacture. Do the math with me. For every one rocket the adversary sends, the defender spends over 50 times that amount just to break even. This isn't just a military struggle, it is a deliberate attempt to trigger a total financial collapse of the defense budget. This brings us to the core issue, the Trump miscalculation. When Operation Epic Fury began 18 days ago, the administration threw out a plethora of reasons for starting the war, much like they've thrown out a plethora of metrics to decide when to stop it. But as seasoned diplomats are now warning, there was no strategic reason for this war to reach this magnitude. We are seeing a humiliation of technology. While Washington was bragging about precision strikes, Tehran was betting on massive volume. And Volume 1, the Strait of Hormuz is now effectively closed, and that is what is causing the preponderance of economic pain, not just regionally, but globally. Brent crude is screaming past $120 a barrel, and Iran correctly realizes that this is their only major pressure point. They are going to keep that pressure on until they get exactly what they want out of this war. Did you know that it costs roughly $6.5 million every single day just to keep a single U.S. Navy carrier strike group? You might wonder why we spend that much, but when you consider that over $1 billion worth of oil passes through that strait every day, the carrier group starts to look like a very cheap insurance policy that is currently failing to pay out. The pattern interrupt here is that the U.S. is losing the war in the sense that the administration started this thinking there would be a quick win. They thought by decapitation of leadership, targeting even the highest levels of the Iranian state, they could get the country to either collapse or come to the table. That is not the case. Anyone who follows the region with any degree of attention realizes that because they see themselves in an existential battle, they are willing to escalate disproportionately. Have you noticed how quiet the markets get right before a major announcement? That is because the big institutional investors are waiting to see if Trump will pull the trigger on a kinetic blockade, or if this is another round of psychological warfare. You have to agree that the stakes have never been higher for the American consumer. We are looking at a contrast between the wait-and-see approach of the past and the strike-first reputation that is currently being leveraged. But a strike-first policy only works if you have the depth of inventory to back it up. Currently, reports indicate that the US is stripping its defenses from Japan, South Korea, and Poland just to keep the interceptor magazines full in the Levant. This is the global overstretch. Trump is being forced to choose: protect the Pacific from China or protect the Middle East from Iran. He cannot do both. Consider the 3-ton monsters that emerged once the Iron Dome batteries went cold. We are talking about the Lion 34 class ballistic missiles. These carry warheads that are the weight of 2 full-sized vehicles falling from space at Mach 7. The kinetic energy alone turns soil into liquid. These aren't the small rockets you see on the evening news. These are strategic weapons designed to collapse reinforced bunkers hundreds of meters underground. This was the psychological turning point. When the elite realized their indestructible bunkers were actually pre-dug graves, the panic started. This wasn't just a military strike, it was a decapitation of the will to fight. But why did we go to war in the first place? Experts like those from the Middle East Institute point out that Iran was not even about to make a bomb. If you take the administration's statements at face value, their nuclear program was already all but obliterated. So it seems that the nuclear stopping program has been an issue for decades. But the American public has had a problem with this war from the beginning because it was never explained properly. Do you think 18 days and we are any closer to understanding why this is happening? Or is it simply that we are responding to the massive shock of previous regional escalations and seeking peace through facts on the ground rather than negotiation? Let's talk about the Iranian people for a moment, because this is where the magical thinking of Washington really falls apart. There is a persistent myth that the population is a monolith waiting for Western liberation. But there are 93 million people in that country, and you cannot make a useful generalization about what they want. While many are dissatisfied with their government, they aren't necessarily willing to risk anarchy, failed state status, or getting shot in the hopes of a new one. The regime has mobilized the Revolutionary Guard to ensure people don't take to the streets. They've arrested thousands, executions are up, and they have implemented the longest internet shutdown in history. They are willing to kill thousands of their own citizens to maintain power, a grim reality that the regime change advocates in the West often ignore. The yes ladder is starting to form here. You want stable gas prices, you want American sailors to be safe, and you want to avoid a conflict that drains our national treasury for decades. If you agree with those points, then you understand why the current policy of maximum deterrence is being questioned. It is a strategy of peace through strength. But strength is only a deterrent if the other side believes you are willing to use it and that you have the resources to sustain it. Right now, the Lion 34 strategy used by regional actors has proven that a sanctioned, isolated nation can humiliate a superpower if it has the will to endure. Look at the role of China and the death of the petrodollar. Iran didn't just close the gate to the Strait of Hormuz, they filtered it. They announced that friends of the New Order, Russia and China, can pass freely. Everyone else pays a conflict premium. This is the ultimate weapon. It's not a bomb, it's a price tag. When the oil stops flowing in dollars, the dollar starts being the world's currency. We are seeing secret trade deals happening in the shadows. Major oil powers, seeing the United States fail to protect its partners, are already talking to Beijing. The petrodollar is the only thing keeping the American economy afloat. If that anchor snaps, the sea of fire in the Middle East will lead to a sea of inflation in your local grocery store. The pattern interrupt in this story is the role of Prime Minister Mark Carney in Canada, who has publicly supported the U.S. efforts to prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon. Yet even he is facing internal pressure as the economic fallout hits the Great White North. Interest rates are being hiked in Australia and Canada alike as inflation fears from the Iran war take hold. The rules-based order is being challenged by a multipolar world where might is once again right. Russia and China are sitting back and watching this play out like a masterclass in strategic patience. For Vladimir Putin, every interceptor fired in the Middle East is a gift that draws resources away from Ukraine. For Xi Jinping, it is a dress rehearsal for Taiwan. Why are we seeing more strikes now? Because the gray zone, warfare has reached a tipping point. Trump is signaling that the era of plausible deniability is over. But you can't just negotiate your way out of an empty warehouse. The U.S. military is currently in a quagmire where every interceptor sent to the region is an interceptor taken away from our faces long like an hour. This is a zero-sum game. If you were the commander-in-chief, would you leave your own territory defenseless to save an ally city? That is the impossible choice currently sitting on the Resolute desk on April 7th, 2026. As we move toward the climax of this briefing, you have to realize that the Strait of Hormuz is not just a geographical location, it is a symbol. If the U.S. fails to keep it open, the American century officially ends. The diplomat's warning is clear. Stop now. Stop the bombing. Force the allies to stop and begin the slow, painful process of minimizing our footprint before we are dragged deeper into the peace. We started a war based on miscalculation, and we need to stop it as soon as possible. There is no neat solution or mission accomplished. The damage to our reputation and the goodwill of the people in the region will take decades to repair. The payoff of this entire situation is a hard truth. The era of Western high-tech immunity is officially over. We have seen the evidence of the exhaustion trap, the reality of the 3-ton warheads, and the looming shadow of the petrodollar collapse. You now know more than 99% of the population about why the Middle East is currently a sea of fire and why the White House is in a state of quiet panic. To summarize the key takeaways, first, the Iron Dome's failure was an economic certainty based on the cost ratio of interceptors versus rockets. Second, the quick-win strategy failed because it underestimated the existential resolve of the conflict. And third, the closure of the Strait of Hormuz is a direct threat to the U.S. dollar status as the world reserve currency. If you found this analysis valuable, and you want to keep receiving deep dives into the stories the mainstream media won't tell you, please hit that like button, subscribe, and share this video. Your support is the only reason this channel can exist, and help me prove my friends. Let me know in the comments. Do you think Trump's more strikes vow will force Iran to blink, or is it time to do no more harm and exit the conflict? Your insights help drive this community forward. Stay informed, stay vigilant, and I will see you in the next video. This is Global Watch. Are you watching?